Today we have a really special guest. For those of you that are familiar with Brandon and like the wonderful work that he's doing with Blitz, already know how cool and incredible this person is. But just a quick introduction. Brandon is the creator and full-time maintainer of Blitz. Um, he's also been consulting for about 3.5 years, and he's an entrepreneur at heart. And I am excited for this workshop, and I will let him over to you, Brandon.
Awesome. Welcome, everyone. Good to see you all. And let's just jump in and talk about Blitz, shall we? So, first thing is why Blitz? Why another framework? Why, this new thing? Why did I create it? Etc. So, if you're familiar with building a full stack React app, where you're doing everything end to end, it doesn't take long before it begins to feel like this, because you have to have a server component, right? That's going to talk to a database somehow. And then you're going to need an API, whether it's a REST API or GraphQL API, something like that, to get your data over to the front end. And then you have to go into your React app, and then you have to fetch from those endpoints. And you have to fetch that data. You have to cache that server state. You have to, kind of manage that. And then you have to do that for every page, every component, every model. And you spend a lot of time just managing all this data fetching back and forth from front end to back end. And that's just reading data. So then you also have to do, API endpoints for changing data from the client to the server. And initially, like if you're new to this stuff, this can be very overwhelming. And then once you learn it and you kind of master it, then it just gets frustrating, and you're like, why am I doing all this? Can it not be any simpler? And so, I was dealing with this for a few years and just kind of mulling over in my head, like, what would it look? And I would think about this idea or some other idea, but I never came across any idea that really had potential. So that is until almost a year ago, exactly. I was talking to a Ruby on Rails developer who is a Ruby on Rails developer, and we were just discussing things, and I just had the inspiration that was like, you know what, I think now, so a year ago, like now is the perfect time to actually start this thing. And it would be made of Next.js and Prisma for the database access. And I didn't really know what it would fully look like, but I knew that there was a potential there that this could be a really awesome combination. So there were two things that I was really keen on having. There was two things that I really wanted to have the developer experience that I was going for. So number one, I wanted it to be monolithic. Monolithic means it's like one kind of one thing to build, one thing to deploy, one thing to reason about. So instead of having like a server app that you deploy and a front end, back end and front end, it's all together in one full stack application. So that already there, that drastically simplifies things, because there's less moving parts, right? There's only one conceptual entity. And then secondly is I wanted to get rid of the API. So like Ruby on Rails and Laravel, where they're doing server-side rendering, it's so much simpler because they don't have an API because they're doing server-side rendering. But with React, we want to have client-side rendering where you're sending data back and forth from the, like a single page app. So you have to have an API, but yet I want to get rid of the API, right? So there's this kind of like, like this hard problem. How do we solve that? And I'll talk about how we did that in a few minutes. So the first key thing to know is that Blitz is built on top of Next.js. If you don't know about Next.js, Next.js is a framework for React. It's a hybrid framework that's really simple and powerful. So it's multifunctional. It lets you have server-side rendering. It lets you have just regular static rendering, create React app or something where it's just, there's no server component, but it's just client side rendering. And then it also can do static page generation like Gatsby. So there's really nothing. Oh, and then also API routes. So you can have like server functions, right? So there's like really nothing that it can't do. So that's awesome. And then additionally, it gives you nice things like automatic code splitting for each of your pages, which is very important to have. And you can deploy it to server or to serverless. So it's really powerful. Now, secondly, the second big thing that comes with Blitz, now this comes by default, but you don't have to use it, but we recommend it. So Prisma is a database ORM. So this is the part that interfaces to your database, and it handles a few things. It handles your database migrations. So like talking to a SQLite database or Postgres database, it manages your schema. So in a database, you have these tables. So you would have like a users table, organizations table, projects table, and then within the table, there's columns for each of the fields, like an ID column, first name, last name, email, etc. And Prisma makes a really nice way to manage that. And then secondly, Prisma gives you a nice client. So you don't have to write SQL, right? So instead of writing SQL, it gives you this nice library that you import, and then you can call like db.user.findMany, db.user.create, db.user.delete, etc. And then it's fully typed. So if you're using TypeScript, then it gives you all the types. But even if you're not using TypeScript, with VS Code, you still get the autocomplete, which is super helpful. So here's an example of what the post or the Prisma schema file looks like. And so it's relatively simple. You have some initial kind of stuff at the top, just like boilerplate stuff. And then you have so we have a user model here. It has an ID field, created at, email, name, role, post. You have a post model that has ID, created at, etc. And then an enum. So you can see like it's relatively friendly. And whenever you run the Prisma migrate command, it'll take this thing and do all the messy SQL work that's required to get your database to match this. All right, so now let's go back to Blitz, and I'm going to list out the 7 foundational principles. Number 1 is full stack and monolithic, which I already touched on. Number 2, API not required, which I also touched on. Number 3, convention over configuration. Probably you've heard this term, but if not, it means that instead of requiring you to like manually configure every single thing, we rely on conventions as much as possible so that if you use a convention, you don't have to do any configuration. But if you want to go outside the convention, then you can configure that. Okay, so it gives you a nice default is another way to put it. Number 4, loose opinions. So people kind of like aren't used to this and they're like, what does this mean? So in contrast to strong opinions, loose opinions mean we have opinions on how to do things. We recommend how to do a file structure. We recommend all these different things, but we don't enforce those opinions. So it's we give you the power and flexibility to kind of blaze your own trail if you wish to. Easy to start, easy to scale is the 5th one. So pretty self-explanatory. Number 6, stability. Right now, while we're in pre-beta, pre 1.0, so we just launched our beta release last week. So this is like the perfect time to learn about Blitz and use it. But once we get to 1.0, hopefully in April, then we're going to implement a stable, predictable release cycle so that it's like every so many weeks, there'll be a new release, and releases will be in a beta status for a certain number of weeks to iron out bugs. And so we're going to have a real emphasis on stability so that you don't have to worry about breaking changes and things. And then lastly is community over code. We really value community. And we think community is more important than specific technical details of implementation, etc. All right. So the big first thing that you'll notice is that how does Blitz make your life better? Is that a bunch of menial setup is done for you. So when you run, when you create a new app, we have a CLI command Blitz new that generates a new app for you, and it already sets up an awesome folder structure for you. It sets up ESLint for checking your code, Prettier for formatting your code automatically, Husky for running Git hooks. So like when you run git commit, it'll automatically make sure your code is formatted, check it, etc. Jest for testing is already set up for you, including some example tests. The database access with Prisma and forms. So we give you an option when you generate a new app. We give you the 3 top form libraries. You get to choose from those. And then we generate a nice form abstraction for you, so you're set up to use it already. And then the real big one is user sign up, login, and log out is already set up for you, right? So when you generate a new app, you don't have to set up authentication because it's already done. That's like so awesome to me. It's so awesome. And then we also have a reset password flow. So that's already done for you. So it's super awesome. You have to check it out. All right. Now, Zero API data layer. So this is getting to the real like crown jewel of Blitz. This is the biggest thing to know about Blitz. And we abstract the API into a compile step. So this means as a developer, you don't have to think about the API on the server or the client. You just write functions that run on the server, and we call them queries and mutations. And they're plain asynchronous JavaScript functions. And then you import them directly into your components and use them like straight away. So it just drastically simplifies how you build these things. And like for a number of months, even when I would use this, I would still be like, wow, like, is it really that easy? And it's pretty cool. So how do we do this? So we have a compile step that swaps out those function imports with an API client. Okay, so on the server, we turn those into API endpoints, and then on the client, we turn that into like a fetch call, and then we have hooks that are built on React Query that manages all the caching and things, and so it's a really really nice experience. So here is a kind of a rough architecture diagram, gives you a little bit of idea. So on the right side, you can see we have a client-side rendered page at the top right, and so this say like some type of admin page, and then this gray box is the auto-generated API endpoints that Blitz gives you, so that you don't have to even think about the gray box, but it is there. And then on the bottom right, you have a get listing query and an update listing mutation. And these dashed arrows represent importing that function directly into your component. And then at compile time, we swap it out with that API endpoint. And then it shows how you can reuse that same query like on a directly on the server without an API call for like server-side rendered page. All right, so let's get into some code. So here we are in the terminal, and I have created a new app. So I ran this command here, blitz new my Blitz app, and asked me to pick a form library. I picked React Final Form, and you can see it creates quite a lot of files. So initially this can be a little bit overwhelming, but fear not. So what this is set up for is it's set up to give you an app, to give you a production app, everything that you need to like build a real app. Okay, so we're not optimizing for first impressions here. We're optimizing for long-term productivity. So if you're familiar with Next.js, you create a new app and there's like only just a couple files in there. So it's really minimal to start with, but then you quickly realize you have to start adding all these other files to actually really do anything. And so we include all that in here for you. So try not to be overwhelmed. Take your time with it and explore all the things that it gives you. So we'll walk through those briefly here. So the main thing to know is the DB folder. And the DB folder gives you the Prisma schema file in here is the main thing. So you have db schema.prisma, and this gives you this thing that I already showed you earlier. So this is how you manage your database and what's in your database. So it comes with a user model, session model, and a token model by default. And then you can add other things in here. It has a DB index file, which is where you set up your Prisma client. And then the bulk of your code is going to be in the app folder. So app core is where we have starting components, a form component for you, a use current user hook for in your code. We have a layout component for you set up here. So that's app core. App pages is where you put all your pages. So like your index page, your home page, we have your 404 page, and then you would add all the rest of your pages here too. App auth has all of the code for your authentication. So if for some reason you want to get rid of auth, you can just delete this folder and it'll be gone. So we have some login form, sign up form components in here. We have your mutations for login, log out, reset password, sign up, and we'll go through those in just a minute. And then you have users, so you can see app auth users, and so this is where you would put any code related to users. So we try to kind of organize them by models, more so than types. So instead of having top level like app pages, app components, app hook, we try to abstract them, like organize them a bit more, because this way is a little bit more scalable how we do it here. Okay, so let's go through the sign up. Actually, let's run the app. And so we run Blitz dev, and it'll fire up an application here. Okay, here we go, my browser. Okay, so I'm on port 3001 because I must have something else running on port 3000, but it'll be port 3000 by default. Okay, so here we go. This is what you'll see just when you set up a new app. And so we're going to go ahead and click on the sign up button and just type in an email and password here. And now we're logged in, and you can see it has a user ID of 1 and a user role of user. And then I can log out. I can log in. And let's say I forgot my password. And so I'm going to put in my email here and submit that. And then you can see it opens up an email. So this is your password reset instructions. So in development, this just opens a new web page for you. But for production, you'll have to implement your own production mailer. Like hook it up to your production service like Postmark or SendGrid or something. So let's click this reset password link. It takes you to the reset password form, and we can type in a new password. Also, you'll notice that we have validation set up for you by default. So password should be at least 10 characters and they must match. All right. Sweet. So now we're logged in. So let's look at the code on how this works. So we will, let's go over here. So app auth components. Let's go to the page first. So app auth pages, sign up, and you can see there's not much in here beside a sign up form. So we'll go to the sign up form, and this is a fairly simple form. We have form, we pass in a schema, initial values, on submit, and then we have our email and password form down here. So the thing we want to look at here is the sign up mutation. So we have a user mutation hook, and we pass sign up to it, and then we call await sign up mutation. So where does this sign up come from? So this sign up function comes from app auth mutations sign up. And so this is getting to the magic thing right here. So let's go look at this. This is a mutation sign up. Okay, now this is your sign up mutation. So notice there's no HTTP stuff here. There's no REST or GraphQL. This is a function that runs on the server, and we just import it into that component we were looking at. So this uses a resolver.pipe function, and this pipe function is it's like a functional thing. So if you're functional programming, so it runs these in order. So the first thing we do here is run resolver.zod, which takes a validation schema. Let's look at that. Validations, sign up. And so the sign up schema says that, hey, we're expecting an object that has an email field that is a string and is formatted as an email. And then we're also taking a password, which is a string, minimum length of 10, maximum length of 100. Okay, so this schema we use on the front end and the back end, the same thing. So you have the client side validation and the server side validation, which are both important, right? On the server validation, you want for security, and for the client validation, you want for user experience. You have to, so you get that instant feedback instead of waiting for the server to give you an error. So that gives you your validation, and then inside this function here, the first thing we do, we hash the password, and then we create the user. So this shows how to access the database. So db.user.create, pass in data, which is an email, and our hashed password. And in this case, we give them a default role of user. Okay, and then you can also, so you see that we can select certain fields, you can select relationships, and then the return type, since we're using TypeScript here by default, is you can see that the return type is fully typed. So it's email, ID, name, and role. And then lastly, we're going to call context.session.create. And this is how you log in a user. So session management, a session is a logged in user. Okay, so you can create a session, revoke a session, and it's equivalent to sign up and sign out. So here we just sign up or log in the user, and then that's it. So you can do any other server-side stuff in here, but that's pretty much the gist of it. So let's look at the login mutation. You can see that this is so this first part is a helper function. And then down here, the login takes that helper function that says authenticate user, passes the email password. And if the credentials are invalid, if the password is wrong, it throws an error. And we'll look at how you handle errors later. It's really easy. But so we just verify the credentials, and then we call that same thing context.session.create. And then logout is even simpler. It's just context.session.revoke, and that's it. Okay. So let's look at forgot password. So we'll go to the forgot password page, and you can see the same thing. We import a forgot password mutation, pass it to the use mutation hook, and call on submit, call that the mutation. So let's look at that mutation, forgot password. And so this is a bit more involved. You can see there's more stuff going on here, but we comment everything. And then so you have full control over it. So as your app, your business, whatever gets bigger and bigger, and you need to customize stuff, you can just go in here and just change the code to whatever you need. So we get the user. You can look at this later. Here, this is where we use the tokens. So we create a reset password token. We generate that token, hash it, and then we call the mailer. So this actually triggers the mailer. So let's look at that. So the top level mailers folder. we have forgot password mailer, and this takes in, you can define, this is all your own code, so you can totally customize this, but we set up this HTML block, and then we have two things. So if it's production, right now by default, it just throws an error. So this is where you have to hook up your own production emailer. And we right now we don't have very many good docs on this, but we're working to make that easier. But if not production, then we use this preview email thing, which opens it in the browser, which you saw. All right, so now let's just start building something. Let's see what it's like to add new functionality. All right, so we are going to, so this is the server log. You can see that it logs out kind of nice logs about what's happening. So it says reset password, started with input, password confirmation, and token. So that's the exact input to that mutation. And then you can see reset password finished, and then it logs out the time that it took to do that. So let's stop that server, and let's generate a project. So let's say we're like doing a project management application. And so we're going to type on the terminal Blitz generate all. So Blitz generate all. So this, you can Blitz generate pages, Blitz generate queries, mutations. You can look at the docs. So there's a lot of different things, but all will generate everything that we have, everything that we can. So Blitz generate all project name and string. So this is going to say a project with a name field on it. All right, so let's just hit enter, and this will create a number of pages. So it creates a page for each of the four things. So CRUD, C-R-U-D, CRUD is like create, read, update, and delete. So that's your four fundamental data operations: create, read, update, delete. And this Blitz generate all generates all the code that you need to do those four things. So those four actions each have their own page. So projects index, projects new, projects show page, which is just a single ID, and then the edit page for that project. It generates a form, and it generates your queries for those four actions. So in this case, is actually 5, because you want to get a single project or get a list of projects, and then create, update, and delete. And then lastly, it generates that model for you in your Prisma schema. So it automatically sets up the ID, created at, updated at, and then the name field, which is a string. So it asks if we want to run Prisma migrate dev to update your database, and we'll say yes. And it asks for name of the migration, and we'll say add project. This is just for your own reference. And now that is done. Okay, so now we can run Blitz dev. And once this starts, we can go back to over here. And you'll notice that we're following the same steps that it says kind of right here. So if you're wondering what I'm doing, you can generate a new app and then follow these same steps here. So it says restart the server. So we did that, and go to /projects. Okay, so here is /projects. And so right now there's nothing. So we can say create project, and it takes us to /projects new. And let's call this prepare Mintbeans presentation. Actually finish, because it's already prepared, right? Just finish. And I can't spell, so we'll just say p dot. All right. So create that thing. And now it takes us over to the project /ID field, which in this case, project ID of 1. And since we don't know how you want to style your thing, we just print it out in a JSON. But this is where you would go into this page and update like however you wanted to display that. So you can see that we can edit it, And this takes us to projects1/edit. And here we have that same field, the form. And so we could edit it and then see if we can spell presentation right this time. All right. Okay. Now that works. And now go back to the projects page and you see there's a list here. Now, if we create more than, I forget what the default pagination is, like 100, I think. So if we created over 100, then this pagination, you can see there's next and previous buttons, and those would become active. And so this already has pagination set up for you by default, which to me is just awesome because I hate setting up pagination. So there we go. So we're already, doing pretty good on projects. So let's add a new field to projects. And sorry, let's go to the terminal here. And I'm going to say Blitz generate a model project. Actually, never mind. I'm going to do this a different way. I'm going to go to schema, Prisma schema. Oops, sorry. Let's go here. Okay, db schema.prisma, and we're going to go down and see there's a project field here, and let's add a new field here called description. And this is also going to be a string, but we're going to give it a question mark, which means that it's optional. Okay. And so now we need to go back to our terminal and run blitz prisma migrate dev dash preview feature. So this is where it's nice to use the blitz generate model command because it kind of does it all for you, but this is how you would do it manually. So this runs prisma migrate, and this is add description. So this runs the migration. Okay, and let's just go ahead and start that server. And then we need to go over to our projects form. So this is under app, projects, components, project form. And you can see here that we already have the name field. So let's duplicate that and change the name to be description. Okay. And now if we go over to view this thing, so edit, you can see now I have a description field. And so this updates the new page and the edit page with that thing. So woohoo. I can't even spell woohoo right. All right. So that's pretty simple. That's pretty slick. All right, so let's do something even more complex. So let's add a relationship. So let's say that we have a project, and now we want to add tasks to a project so that each project can have multiple tasks associated with that. All right, so how should we do this? Well, let's go back to our terminal, and we're going to run blitz generate all task, and we're going to give the task a name of string, and we're going to say that a task belongs to project. And so this is going to set up that relationship in the database for you. Belongs to project. And then there's one last thing. We're going to pass a parent flag which says project. Now it looks like this, we'll make this automatic. But for now, the parent flag is important, and this will set up the nested routing. So let's hit enter. So here you can see it creates those 4 pages for create, read, update, delete. But this time, because we passed the parent flag, it's nested under page or under projects. So instead of app pages task, it's app pages / projects / project ID / task. And then all those task pages are there. That's because the task only makes sense in the context of a specific project. Okay, and then the queries are the same. So you have the get task, and then create, update, and delete a task. And then it adds this model, and here, because we pass belongs to project, it generates these two things which are required. So it gives you the project relation and project ID. So we'll hit yes to run Prisma Migrate. Okay, and now there's actually one more thing that we need to do, which is Blitz. Actually, you can just run Blitz.G. So all the CLI commands have a alias of the first letter. So you can run Blitz.G instead of Blitz generate. So Blitz.G model project, and this is going to be, we're going to add task, and this is a task field that is an array of tasks. So this is the opposite side of that relationship. So a task belongs to a project, and a project has many tasks. All right, so that should be correct. Let's just go check our schema and make sure it looks correct. Yep. So now we have project and task. So we'll run blitz dev. And we'll go view a specific project. Now we'll reload this page, and you can see that in this query, there's no information about the task, but we want to include the task in this. So in this case, we want to show, like, let's say, like, a count, how many tasks or something in this initial query. So if we go to the get project query, go to projects, queries, get project, and so sometimes you have to restart VS Code for the types, for TypeScript to show up, which is kind of annoying. So let's just close that and then open code back up. Okay, so this is the get project query, and you can see this does the same. It has this Zod schema, which is to validate the input, which is only an ID. And then it has this resolver.authorize thing, which ensures that a user is logged in. So we'll get back to the task, but I want to show you that if we go to the home page and log out, and then go to a projects page, notice that it shows the login form instead of anything else, because you're not logged in. Okay, so there's two ways that you do this authentication, and that is right here. That's how you secure your data on the server. You add this resolver.authorize function to the pipe, and then you could also add in a specific role. So you could say, like, require an admin, and this would authorize an admin versus any user. So you can authorize specific roles. And then if you go to the pages, projects index. So the other way that you do that authorization is on the page, you set page.authenticate equals true. And this ensures that on the client side that page will not show up. Or it'll show up, but if the user is not logged in, it'll throw an authentication error. Okay, so now we're getting into error handling. So this will throw an authentication error, and then also in the query, we'll throw an authorization error if you're not logged in. And we can see that in the terminal. So if you look at the terminal, it says get projects, and then you can see there's an authentication error. All right, so how does this authentication error get translated into showing a login screen? It's a good question. So in React apps, this may be a new concept to you, but React apps have error boundaries. And these error boundaries have been around for quite a long time, but they haven't been as common. but so we import error boundary from React error boundary. And this is in underscore app, which is the very root of our application, right? So this is like the very top level node of our application. So we wrap our entire application in this error boundary, and we pass it a component that's going to handle that error. And that is root error fallback. And so now you can say if this error is an instance of authentication error, then we're going to show the login form. Woohoo! Isn't that awesome? So you can just throw an authentication error from anywhere in your app, whether it's on the server or the client, and it just magically comes all the way to this error boundary, and then you can handle it whatever. You could do redirect to a login page if you wanted to, but we recommend just showing the login form. So like you can see here that we're still on that original URL. So let's just log in. And you'll notice that as soon as we log in, the project's page will appear. Bam. And we didn't even have to do any redirects or anything. And then the other thing that it can happen is authorization error. So that's if you require a specific role, then like admin, for example, and if you're logged in but don't meet the role, then it will show, sorry, you are not authorized to access this, like a 403 page, I believe it is. Okay. So now let's go to our projects index page. And I want to show you here how the types, how we have autocomplete here. So we have the get projects query. So we get the data, returns the data, and then here's the list of projects. And you can see that project. And so this has autocomplete here. So project dot, it shows you that there's going to be a created at, description, ID, name, and updated at. And all of these fields come all the way from your database schema. Okay, so this is what Prisma provides you, which is super awesome. So if we try to access like project dot, let's do this. So this is, we list project dot name. Okay, so this page that we're looking at is this page, and I want to add the number of tasks here to this list. So it's going to be add a space here, and we'll say task colon, and then project dot task dot length. Okay, now notice it's giving me a TypeScript error, and it says property task does not exist on type project. Well, isn't that cool? So I don't have to run the code to know that it's not going to work. So how do we add this thing? Well, that's also easy. So let's go to that query. So in this case, it's get projects. Get projects. And you can see has this nice, we have a pagination helper that it's using. And then we have this db.project.findMany. And so here we want to add an extra argument that says include. And we're going to include task true. And this has an error. So probably this is that that annoying VS Code thing where you have to restart VS Code. So if you have this thing, restart VS Code, and hopefully somebody will fix it someday. It's not a Blitz thing. So now, we still have an issue. So what's going on? I think, I know why. So we need to run Blitz Prisma generate. And that will regenerate the Prisma client to make sure it matches our schema. So I think I need to update something there. So again, let's close this thing and code. All right, so now it should say task true, and get rid of our extra thing. All right, so now that works. All right, sweet. So if you ever run into a problem where your schema is like correct, but the types aren't showing up over there, then run Blitz Prisma generate to generate the Prisma client again, which will generate the types. Make sure that they are correct. So now let's go back to our component. Oh, look, so that error is gone. Project.task, that length is gone. So let's go over to our, we need to start the server. Server is starting. Reload the page. And nothing is showing up. So it's because I didn't save the file. Save the file. And there we go. Task equals 0. Woo! Awesome. So now let's create a task on this thing. So if we do add/task on the end of this projects, then it's going to, now it's showing a list of tasks, but it's only going to be on this specific project. So this is task on this finished presentation is say finish talking first task. Okay, so you can see it's connected to that project, and that's because of the code that was kind of generated for you. So now if we go back to a list of projects, now you can see that this one has one task. So let's create another project, make a new Blitz app, and then we'll go add/task onto here, and let's add a task for making this new Blitz app. Run Blitz new my app, create that task. And now let's go back to the projects page. And you can see that both of these things have a task. But if we go to /task for that page, that we only see the task for that specific project, okay? So you can see that so this is like how you do, relationships. And we walk through this in the Blitz tutorial. So I'll be wrapping up here shortly. And Blitz.js.com is where you'll want to go to get started. And then we have a tutorial in here that it walks you through a similar thing where you're like making like a polling thing. So you have questions and answers, and you allow people to vote on them. So that's a really good resource if you want to dig into this even further. All right, so let's move along. There's a few more things I want to show you that are really awesome in Blitz apps. So we have this thing called recipes. So it allows you to install dependencies really easy with the one step. So for example, you can run Blitz install Tailwind or Blitz install Chakra UI, Blitz install Material UI, and it'll set up all the dependencies and configuration for you automatically. So that's pretty cool. Check that out. We also have Blitz Console, which if you run Blitz Console in your terminal, it opens up a node REPL where you have access to your database. And so you can just manually run your database things right in the terminal to test them out to see what, what it is. You can use it to create admin users. And in fact, I need to show you something that's really cool. So there's another thing called Blitz Prisma Studio. If you run that in your terminal, it's going to open up this web page that shows you all the models in your database. So you can click on user and you can see the user models in your database. You can look at the projects in your database, and then you can also update this. So you can say, we need a few more exclamation marks in there, hit enter, save change, and now that's updating straight in the database. You can create new records, you can filter. So this is super powerful. And so go back to your presentation, finish this. All right. So there's a few other big features. We have Passport, a JS adapter for social login. So it's really easy to add login via like Twitter, GitHub, Facebook, etc. We have HTTP middleware, which is an advanced feature if you need for doing anything. We have advanced data serialization. So probably like if you're new to this, this may kind of go over your head, but in a traditional API situation, on the server, you have to convert dates to strings. And then on the client, if you want to manipulate the date, you have to convert the string back to a date. But we do that all automatically for you. So whatever you return from the server is exactly what you get on the client, which is like a big deal. It saves a lot of headache. So you can deploy to a server or serverless. So you have flexibility on that, which is awesome. You're not locked into a single thing. You can write a custom server if you need to do some really advanced stuff like add WebSockets or something. And then it is database agnostic. So for example, we have a Fauna example in the Blitz repo. So it doesn't use Prisma, it uses Fauna. So that's pretty cool. Our documentation is, like I said, Blitz.js.com. We have a community history page and a bunch of other cool community pages that you can check out to learn more about our community. And just a couple of testimonials here. One person, an early Blitz user, actually, John Control, he said, I use Rails professionally for over a decade, and I feel 10 times more productive on Blitz already after just a few months. And other people are saying similar things. That's pretty awesome. And we have Golia is using Blitz now. And so they started using AWS Amplify, but they said it caused so many issues where Blitz was just plug and play, and they're super happy with it. And then this fellow also says, hey, we're actually working on a project for a huge US university. Can't disclose the name, but they're using Blitz.js for that. So even though Blitz is just now in beta, there's already a bunch of apps running in production. And one of the biggest ones is there's a fairly large gambling site or for like finding online casinos. So it has a lot of traffic, and they're using Blitz. They switched to Blitz and have been very happy. So how can you try Blitz? So you run install Blitz globally, npm install-g Blitz installs the global CLI, and then run Blitz new and give it a name of an app, and it'll generate your app, and you're off to the races. So we need your help. Blitz is an open source project, and it's not company sponsored or anything. So we're just like I'm donating my time, and everybody else is donating their time. And so we'd love to have you join and help in the community. So there's you can start even if you're totally new to open source. You can come and help. We label issues as good first issue, good second issue, etc. And we also have issues that are labeled ready to work on. So if you're new, you can find an issue that's labeled ready to work on and good first issue. And those are very small bite-sized things that are simple to fix. And then you can become involved as much as you want. We have a couple levels of maintainers, and so we have a really cool community and would love to have you help. And you can help in any way, like making videos, blog posts, etc., are super helpful. Lastly, donations and sponsorships. You can donate. You can sponsor a Blitz for as low as $5 a month, and then also all the way up to like company tiers. So if you work at a company that does sponsorships, and maybe you can talk to them about sponsoring Blitz, that would be super helpful. And that brings me to the end. So Blitz.js.com is the website. Again, you can follow me at Flybear on Twitter and follow Blitz_JS. So that's all I have, except for questions.
Awesome. That was awesome, Brandon. There are a number of questions that kind of rolled in as you were running the workshop. I actually just linked you to a Google Doc that I built It should be in your chat. I sent it to you directly. You could take a quick look at that. There were a couple of questions that were really good. There was a question around, someone wanted to use this for their team and wanted to know if Blitz is sponsored and how well it's supported. I think you've addressed that, but there's a number of questions. If you could take a look at that, that would be awesome.
Okay, yeah. So the first one to see if you wanted to make a native mobile app using React Native, is there a way to expose the API? Yes. So you can use the auto-generated API directly in your React Native app, and we have some folks doing that right now. It's currently, we don't have very many docs, actually no docs really on doing that, but that is something that we're going to be working on making easier. And then we also have a bunch of kind of plans for making like a first class integration with React Native, where you get the same kind of zero API thing. We're importing server code directly into your React Native app. So that's definitely important to us. And you can ask for help in the Discord to kind of help get started on that. We, on the business model, so Blitz is fully community driven, community owned driven. Currently I'm making about $1,500 a month from sponsorships. And so hoping that grows. And then also I have some business ideas for building on top of Blitz. So like other like services, et cetera, sort of like Laravel. And I'm currently supporting myself through consulting. So next question, is it possible to choose from the template generator if we want to use the email login or username? So no, it's not currently possible, but you can change that code pretty easily after you generate it. And asking about, is it financially backed in case my company? Yeah, so it's right now it's community backed. So in my opinion, community backed is more important than financially backed, because if you have somebody that's financially just kind of paying for it, like what if they decide to stop and they go away, and then what, right? So I think community is more important. We answered the tokens. How would you implement custom auth Z into the pipe? Say, for example, a user who created the project is only able to create task. So that you can ask me in the Discord. I can provide some code samples that would do that. But the other thing you want to check out is Blitz Guard. That's a relatively new authorization library. It's modeled after can for Ruby on Rails. And so it's a centralized authorization thing that you can do like infinitely complex stuff. So that would probably be the best way I would recommend to do that, is use Blitz Guard. How's reflected all the relation on the database? I'm not sure. Maybe you can elaborate on that question. And maybe I'm not sure if I answered it or not. Okay, well, reset email invite. Maybe one day it'd be a recipe. Yeah, we want to make a production email things set up better, so you can run like Blitz install postmark, and it would set that up pretty much for you. There's still so much that we can do to make it better. We're just getting started, but it's already pretty awesome. Can it be used with Mongo? Yes, but not through Prisma. Prisma is currently working on MongoDB support, so it probably won't be too long before you can use Prisma, which would be pretty sweet. Does role-based authentication work on the page as well? Currently, no, we don't have, like, you can't set page.authenticate equals admin role or something. But currently how it works is you can do a hook. You can use a custom hook to do that. But yeah, that's something that we need to improve. What are the main differences between Blitz and just using Next.js? So Blitz provides a ton of stuff on top of Next.js, like the authentication, the zero API data layer, all the CLI code scaffolding. So there's really a ton of stuff. And we have a specific page in the documentation that says why Blitz instead of Next.js. And I go into more detail about that there. Next question. I have a model and run Prisma migrate. Does it create the front end page, form queries and mutations? Yes, if you run Blitz generate all. Okay, so go to the Blitz generate docs in our documentation on the website, and you can see that there's different things that you can pass to generate for example, you could just generate just the queries, or just the mutations, or queries and mutations, or just the pages, or all. Next question, you said an API could be added when needed. What would be some examples of when one would do that? So right now, to do file upload, you have to add your own custom API endpoint. Again, that's something else we don't really have documented very well, but we'll absolutely be working on that. If you need an API for some third-party service, so you can do that. If you need like webhooks, callbacks, so if you're using Stripe and you have Stripe webhooks, so that can be added API. Or like for a mobile app too, if you wanted to add a GraphQL API, you can add a GraphQL API into your Blitz app and use that from your mobile app. Can we use it with Oracle? I'm guessing database. Yes. You can use Blitz with any type of database. Okay. So we come with Prisma 2 by default, which works with Postgres, MySQL, and SQLite. But you can take that out and use anything you want. Does Blitz use Tailwind too? Not by default, but if you run Blitz install Tailwind, it will install Tailwind for you automatically in one command. And I love Tailwind. So the new website that we launched last week is built with Tailwind. Awesome. Anything else?
Man, I think you covered it all. Do you think, does anybody have any other questions for Brandon before we wrap up? Feel free to open your mics and ask him a question directly.
Funny comment, Hannah, on thinking all the hours of your life that you would have back if you had heard this sooner. Sorry, I've been talking about it every chance I get.
Yeah, he does. So I guess no questions. No more questions.
Quick question. Yeah, just wanted to ask: is it version 2 of Tailwind if I use Blitz install Tailwind?
Yes.
Great.
Yep.
Cool.
One thing you should check out is it's actually on the Blitz YouTube, and you can find a link in the Blitz Twitter. We had a meetup last Friday, and it was our first kind of official meetup. We had a lightning talk by Lori. So she talked about how she's using it in her startup and goes through some architecture. And then also I had a presentation on Blitz Guard by Nicholas, the creator of Blitz Guard, which goes into a really, really cool demo on how to do complex authorization stuff there. So check that out.
Yeah, I got that on my list.
Cool.
Thanks.
Awesome. All right, guys. Thank you so much. I think that's a wrap. Brandon, that was an awesome, awesome, awesome workshop as always. Guys, if you want to connect with me, feel free to do so on LinkedIn. It's the best way to connect with me, leave feedback for the workshops, or just want to say hi and, what other types of workshops you want to see in the Mintbean community. Brandon, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Flybear on Twitter or Flybear in the Blitz Discord. So if you go to blitz.js.com/discord, that will take you to, I think that's right. That'll take you to our Discord.
Cool. Awesome. You heard him, folks.
Actually, discord.blitz.js.com.
Cool. Great.
Or go to the website and find the link.
That's the best way, right?
Yeah.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. Happy Monday. Take care.